I think our next speaker might be able to wake you up a bit and energize you. We're talking about no-code and automation, essential tools for product managers. And our speaker is a good friend of the Digitale Leute team. She's an experienced speaker at the Digitale Leute Summit. And originally, she planned to be an actress. And we are very happy that she didn't do that and instead became a founder in no-code. Please, warmly, loudly, and energetically welcome Lilith Brockhaus.
Well, thank you very much. Experienced speaker. I'm glad you said that, but that's maybe a little bit exaggerated. I remember last year was actually my first talk in front of an experienced tech audience, and I was just, shitting my pants actually. So, yeah, not actually, so, but anyway. Glad that you're here. I hope to get your energy actually a little bit up. And I'm here today to talk to you about no-code and automation and why should you care as a product manager about no-code tools. Do I have a clicker, actually? Perfect. Oh, you have one. Thank you. All right, first of all, about me. As Annalena said, actually, I was not into tech at all. I wanted to be an actress a few years ago, had no clue about tech and not even about stuff like Excel, and no-code kind of paved the way for me into the tech world. And I worked as a product manager at several companies, Pirate X, maybe some of you know the Pirate Summit here in Cologne, big startup conference. Then at SoSafe, also bigger scale-up, I would say now in Cologne, and then founded my own company together with my co-founder Alex about an academy, visual makers, about no-code. So what we do, we're an academy for no and low-code, so we enable non-technical teams to use tech in their departments. So by example, marketing teams building their own websites, HR teams automating their processes, but also product managers actually to get product managers more kind of techy and kind of better the communication between different teams, and also kind of reducing the stress on developers. So kind of enabling people to spread the resources more resourcefully. So when we talk about no-code, I would say that no-code is actually the wrong word, because no-code doesn't mean no code, because you have a visual builder, kind of a visual interface, where you drag and drop different items to each other, and you build software and automate processes, but in the end, it's still code, right? So you kind of produce from code that you drag and drop in an visual interface to another sort of code, kind of combining these different building blocks with each other. But in the end, it's still code. You just don't interact with it. So the question is like, okay, no code, it's the buzzword right now, but let's think about a term. I like to talk about it as visual programming. So how do these tools look like? We have various different tools. We come to that later, but want to give you a few examples of one automation tool and one app builder. So on the left side, you see Integromat. They evolved now to Make. They made a big rebranding. That is a automation tool, a iPaaS platform. So integrated platform as a service, which connects different platforms or apps with each other. So you always have like, I don't know, a trigger when you say, if this happens, then this should happen, and transfer data from one point into the other system. So, and you see with these little bubbles that kind of function like magnets. You can just drag and drop different systems in this interface and connect the data with each other. And you map kind of the data from the module, from the first module to the second module, and so on. On the right-hand side, you see the interface of Glide. Glide is a no-code app builder that is based on spreadsheets or Google Sheets, and you can build apps like directories, listings, to-do list apps, and stuff like that with it. And you see, it kind of works like a PowerPoint presentation. So you have a visual interface in the middle, and then you just drag and drop the items that you want to have into your canvas. And on the left side, it's really pretty nice actually to learn how websites actually work in general. So on the left side, you have your layout. And on the right side, you have your design. So you can think of it as HTML on the left side and CSS on the right side, and then you can build various functions with it in minutes. So you actually see what you do, so it's pretty easy to use. So what these tools do is, in my opinion, the democratization of software development or tech in general. Because there are various departments where you don't need developers to build actually something. Like, think of marketing teams wanting to change the color of a button on a landing page, or even create a landing page. No, that doesn't have to be a developer's job. That can be in the marketing team, but they need to have the technical means to be able to do that. And no-code could do that for them. So it's not about kind of no-code replacing code. It's not at all about that. It's more like, okay, let's get more people or let's enable more people to actually create something and make products better in the end. And the idea of no-code is not at all new. So as you probably all know, and probably all better know than I do, code kind of evolved itself into being easier and easier. And the more complex stuff, like repetitive tasks or repetitive code, was always kind of merged into something, and that you can take little blocks and kind of copy and paste that in your new code. And you build certain things from scratch, but of course not all of them. And I really like this quote from Steve Jobs, who said, "The way you get programmer productivity is to eliminate 80% of the code you have to write for your app, and not make the developers write more code in the same amount of time." So there are lots of cases where no code could actually be the better choice for your software development or for your process automation, depending on what goal you have. So I think one of the most important things to understand about no code and low code, and actually code as well, is their means to an end. Because when we want to build software or any kind of process, even if it's an internal process or an internal tool, it's always about business. It's always about the product, like what problem can I solve with what I'm building. And tech is always just the means to an end, but it's not the end. So we're not building, and no code is also not there because it's no code and because it's new and because it's fancy, but because we can actually get more people into creating or transforming their ideas into a digital product than we can before. Because I think 0.03% of the people in the world can code, actually, and can transform their ideas into a digital product, and no code can help solve that problem too. When we talk about no code and low code, then there are different receptions of where to draw the line from no code and low code and code. For me personally, they just kind of evolve into each other. But what is a really common definition of it is that no code is for business users who are not technical at all, or not tech savvy, like marketing teams, HR teams, anyone, entrepreneurs, building products, and maybe not having a tech guy or a tech goal with them. And low code is more for tech savvy people who kind of want to combine these two worlds. So most of the no-code tools always have an option that you can add code and that you can customize them really, really well. And in my experience, it kind of shifts from one to the other. I started with no-code because I had no clue about tech at all. I didn't even know at the time that this thing I was using was a no-code tool. But I quickly evolved to low-code because I used code inside these no-code tools. And then also got a little bit into coding. I'm a really bad programmer, but I can do a little bit. So that was my way into it. But I think if you want to differ between no-code, low-code, and code, then it's probably the best way to start from the user perspective. Who could use or who can use these tools? Because, yeah, business users who have the knowledge from their teams and departments don't need to get deep into programming to create, I don't know, automation for some of their processes and so on. And on the other way around, developers might not need to know about or might not want to use no-code tools that are just kind of drag and drop builders. So as said, they kind of merge into each other. So when you start out with no code, you kind of get into low code, and low code can actually be the bridge between no code and code. So breaking up the barrier between business users and developers. So to give you an idea about what no-code tools are, I brought you this map, which is not at all complete. But to give you an example of in which areas we have no-code tools. So we have the classical app builders and web app builders or website builders that you might know. We also have automation tools like Make or Zapier. We have internal tools or visual programming tools. We have databases, spreadsheets. And there also comes the question, like, what is a no-code tool anyway? For me, because I specialize in automation and data with no-code, for me, everything that has an API is no-code. And that might be wrong, because for me, it's everything you build where you don't have to actually write code, but you can, is a no-code tool. So HubSpot, by example, or CRM tools like Pipedrive and so on are no-code tools for me as well, because I can interconnect them with other tools via no-code. And to give you an example of, like, last year we started to kind of do these maps where we show, like, hey, these no-code tools are cool for this department or for this use case. And you can go on and on and on, and there come, like, every day, it feels like there come new no-code tools for every use case. So we're trying with Visual Makers to kind of sort a directory where we say, like, okay, these no-code tools are actually tested and quite good for this and this use case. So to make it a bit more, that you have a better overview, I think these are the no-code tools that you as product managers should remember. So we have, I made you a list of, or a collection of very different tools. So we have Bubble, which is a web app builder, and I think the most powerful tool out there right now. It's kind of a complete tool where you can build a wholesome web app in, well, not minutes, you just have to learn it because it's a quite complex tool, but it's fairly easy to use and really, really powerful. So you should definitely check that out, especially for MVP building, prototyping, and so on. Make is my favorite tool. It's an automation tool, it's an iPaaS tool, so connecting different systems with each other. Maybe some of you might know Zapier. That is kind of the same category, works a little bit different, and Make is quite more powerful and also gets really technical. So you can do really complex stuff with that, and really cool to check out. Airtable is a visual database, pretty known already, and Softer is kind of a front end for Airtable. So you can build web apps like with a Lego kind of approach. So you have blocks that you get in together, and you can really build powerful web apps, including user login and so on, within, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes. Then the other ones, because we're a little bit short in time, happy to talk about them at the end. But one I would like to show you is Levity. Levity is one also of my favorite tools because it kind of takes no-code to the next level. And it's really cool when you want to build an algorithm in your product and want to test out how that would work. So Levity is taking machine learning to no-code. So you can, with a drag and drop builder, you can build your own machine learning, or you can train your own machine learning algorithm with it. So how it works is, by example, you have lots of photos from flats. So you have photos from a bathroom, a living room, stuff like that. And then you want to sort them. So these are not sorted. You have them all a bunch in a folder. And you want to say, like, okay, this is a bathroom, and this is a living room, and this is a kitchen. So you send all these data to Levity, and Levity is looking like, okay, what could be a living room, what could be a kitchen, a bathroom, and so on. And if it's not sure, then it sends you a message via Slack, and you just click in Slack like, hey, or it asks you like, is this a bathroom or a kitchen? And then you say kitchen, and so it's learning via Slack, via your click, and you kind of click that together. So that's really powerful if you're trying to implement machine learning into your product and want to test it out before. So check it out if you haven't done yet. All right, so let's dive deeper into no-code for product teams. I think there are quite some obvious reasons to try no-code in your product development process. So first, there's the MVP building. That counts for startups as well as for product teams as well, because MVP building with no-code tools is so much faster in most cases, and also so much more agile than with traditional code. Because even if you have developers in your team, you might be still faster with no-code tools like Bubble or like Software, the ones that I showed before. Because you really want to have the core functions in your MVP. Because it's still about the business. It's about the product you want to build. You want to test, is your idea working? What does your customer really need? And therefore, it's sometimes even good if you have limited functionalities and test the first function and then iterate on it. I'm going to show you an example of Finn. Finn is a scale-up from Munich who started with an MVP and scaled really up into code and have now an ARR of 100 million in 3 years. So I'm going to dive deeper into that, how MVP building also works in an iterating process. Then one example which I find really underestimated is the isolation of the core product with no-code. So your core product is built in code. And everything around it, like payment process, user sign-up process, customer communication system with emails and so on, can be built with no-code. So you build a modular system where you have your core product, and every process around it, from sales, from customer success, from marketing, can be adapted and updated without having to touch your core product because it's all connected via APIs. And also, it can be updated by the teams themselves. Like, how do they need to, because they understand their process better than any other team or any other technical team understand. And you don't have to take your developer resources onto projects that lie outside of your core product. So that's a pretty big case. And also, of course, product development. So for established tech models where you don't want to build an MVP, but I don't know, something like marketplaces and so on are really easy to build with no-code as well, and are pretty scalable as well. And then, of course, we have the whole automation part. So that goes a little bit with the example with a core product and building everything around it with no code. So I brought you some examples of how automation can work. Here you see a screenshot of Make again, so automation tool that connects different systems with each other and automates different processes like repetitive tasks, like communication between teams. So let's say, okay, sales has made a deal, and then this whole information needs to go into product, by example. So that would be a big use case. Also, better documentation, that you can kind of automate your documentation from your user interviews, by example. Automate the whole process around your user interviews. More transparency, because other teams understand better how the data is connected inside your product. So automation can do a really, really big deal for your product team. The example I want to show you is Finn. Finn offers car subscriptions and is a pretty big scale-up, like I said, from Munich. They have now 350 employees, and they started with a combination of Webflow, Zapier, and Google Sheets. Although they were quite technical in the beginning. I think there were like 5 co-founders or so, and 2 of them were pretty technical, a lot of experience in software teams, also in leadership positions. And they wanted to test the idea of how does a model, like e-commerce model, work in the automotive industry. So they set up their MVP within a week with Webflow, Zapier, and Google Sheets. And their customers could actually buy their product. And what they do is they deliver the car. They not only do leasing, but they deliver the car right in front of your door. And you don't have to do anything except for tanken? Fueling, yeah, that was the word. So they started with the combination of these 3 tools. And 3 years later, just a few months ago, they were on a completely serverless microservice infrastructure. They had more than 200 services connected to their core system. So they iterated on the no-code tool. So they used one no-code tool, grew it out, and then exchanged it. So they were really modular, not only in the no-code tools, and that's also question that I always or sometimes get is kind of, do no-code tools not have the big lock-in effect where you build something in the no-code tool and then you're stuck with it? Actually, you're pretty modular or flexible with no-code tools because you can always export the data and kind of put that into a different no-code tool or build your own code-based product and start working from there. So you're pretty flexible with all of it. They have 60% of all their processes automated, and their whole company is actually based on automation. So every employee they they hire is in the onboarding. They get a training in automation. So they use automation pretty heavily. And they do that by establishing a role that is the business automation manager. So maybe you've heard of the term citizen development before. That is kind of like the same concept. So you have an engineering, IT department, something like that, and then you spread out the knowledge into the different teams that need it. So a sales team can automate their sales processes, but also a product team can automate their internal processes, do, by example, dashboards, get key data, product analytics, kind of in a really visualized way, inform all the stakeholders, can test out own systems on their own without having to get on developer resources. Same for HR, operations. So in every kind of business you find, or in every department you can find the potential for automation. And I'm running a little bit out of time, I see here, but how they ended up a few months ago was, or how Finn ended up, is like they have so many services connected to their core product which they kind of automate with no-code tools like Make. Until they published an article that no-code isn't scalable. What's a pretty catchy title. It's actually, when you read the article, it's more like a love letter to no-code, because what they did is they iterated from the no-code tools that they used and kind of grew out of it, because they had several challenges there, like stability and speed of the databases. They had like rate limits at the APIs from the no-code tools and so on, and also limitations on the data entries. So what they did, they brought their core product into code after they established like the business model, like how does their product really work. So then, and only then, they build it out and kind of establish still a big transparency within the company, because I really wanted to still have that. And what you can do with tools like Make is you can, these little bubbles that you see here are nothing more than front ends to the APIs. And I think one of the biggest chances kind of for no-code in product management is that you kind of get access, get transparency to the other teams, so that you can build better products after all, because you can better communicate with the other teams in kind of putting these no-code tools in the daily work of the other teams as well. So what you see here is this little bubble with cars in the middle. Is actually an app within a no-code tool that the product team from Finn built to give the other teams access to their API and build it modular again, so that they can build their processes as they need it to, but it works with the API, so they never have to touch the core product with dev capacity. All right, so to come a little bit in a conclusion, with no-code, you can build extremely fast and extremely close to the market, because you can really work closely with your customers and with your key users and iterate really, really fast. You don't have really the lock-in effect with no-code tools, because they're really flexible to use. You can always export and kind of add custom code to it. It actually simplifies recruiting, because you have more people who can do the tasks that you don't really need a dev for, but can be done by example like the business automation manager, and you just get extremely efficient and kind of working more together, since the barriers of this is a tech world and this is the business world kind of are broken up. Because everybody understands better the concept of how data is sent from A to B and where it needs to be what. Do I still have time? Because I'm seeing this clock here is like... It's blinking, right? Yes, it's blinking. Yeah. All right, so I'm just... Because I actually have another use case, which I find pretty interesting, but probably that would get too deep down. So a few use cases for no-code tools and product management, but we kind of already talked about that as well. But I think my main point is try no-code tools out. Either if you are a product manager that comes from business and wants to be more techy and wants to understand more the concept of how tech in general works, like APIs, databases, how does a front end connect to a back end, and so on. You can learn all these concepts with no-code tools. That's the way, at least, I learned, and lots of our customers do. Also, if you're a developer, think about like, and especially if you're thinking like, okay, no-code tools are more like these, okay, they're kind of nice and colorful and a little bit cute, but you can't do actually anything with it. Think about what is the goal behind it? What do I have to reach? Do I want to build something that can be accessible for also other team members that are maybe not technical? And also, am I the bottleneck? If I build this and I want to build this on my own, then I'm the only one, or I always need a dev to update this product. Think about maybe it's cooler if the team members that are non-technical can actually also access and update it, so you're not the bottleneck anymore. Yeah, and if you want to know more about no-code in general, we have a podcast, especially with Finn. It's in German, though, but with Finn, we had a long conversation about how they use no-code in their product development. We do also no-code education, and I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. She came on stage saying that she's not a pro, but ignoring a blinking red light. And me standing right behind here is quite a development compared to last year where you said you were so scared. We don't have time for questions, but if you have questions, Hunter, she loves to answer everything, I know that. Yes. Thank you so much, Lilith.
Thank you.